Welcome back again. Now we shall start discussing about the content of this finance for non-finance. Please understand that every financial transaction has the implications of fund. These fund implications, every financial transactions has got implication of fund. It means that when you capture any financial transactions, it would be resulting in either inflow of fund or outflow of fund. So what I am telling, that whenever you are capturing a financial transaction, this financial transaction will have an implication of either inflow of fund or outflow of fund. This particular understanding is very important to convert the financial transactions into accounting entries. So what I am saying, understanding the implications of financial transaction is the starting point of conversion of financial transaction into accounting entries. And the implication of financial transactions are of two types. One is an inflow of fund, another is the outflow of fund. Let us take some examples of for those financial transactions which involve inflow of fund. Whenever a business entity is registering some sales, it results in an inflow of fund, because when a business entity is selling, from the sales it will get the fund either today or in future. Similarly, when a business entity has a property and that property is put on rent, from that property it is getting a rental income. So this is also an example of an implication of inflow of fund. Let us take another financial transactions. A business entity has invested some amount in bank FD, and from the bank FD it is getting some interest income. So that is also an example of an inflow of fund. Whenever a business entity is getting a loan from a bank, this is also an example of an inflow of fund, because business entity is receiving the fund from the bank in the form of a loan. When the business entity is raising capital from its partners, shareholders, that is also the business is an example when the business entity is receiving the fund. So that is also an example of an inflow of fund. When a business entity is selling some plant and machinery, because the plant and machinery is old and it is of no longer producing the output in an efficient manner, business entity decides to sell that plant and machinery. When business entity is selling the plant and machinery, that is also an financial transaction which implies inflow of fund. Next very important point, we have to see that for understanding this, we don't require any accounts knowledge or finance knowledge. By simply applying common sense, we can find out examples of inflow of fund and outflow of fund. Once we have decided the examples, or once we have seen the examples of inflow of fund, now we shall discuss about the, or we shall quote examples which involves outflow of fund. When the business entity is purchasing raw material for production, that's an example of outflow of fund. When a business entity is incurring salary expenses for its employees, workers, that is also an example where there is an outflow of fund is happening. Similarly, when a business entity is incurring electricity expenses or the manufacturing expenses, that is also an example of outflow of fund. When a business entity is paying interest on loan taken, that's also an example of an outflow of fund. When a business entity is paying taxes, that is also an example of an outflow of fund. So what we look at is that now we have captured the inflow and outflow of fund through several examples. Once we have decided the inflow and outflow of fund, now in the next video we'll discuss how the inflow of fund activity would be converted into an accounting entry. And also we shall discuss how outflow of fund activity would be converting into accounting entry. So what we have discussed, to convert a financial transaction into accounting entry, starting point is to determine the inflow of fund and outflow of fund. So a financial transaction will involve inflow of fund. So we have given some examples which can determine the inflow of fund by applying common sense. Similarly, we will also see that whether it would be the outflow of fund, and depending on that, we can, depending on the inflow or outflow of fund, we shall discuss the methodology to be followed for conversion of financial transaction into accounting entry. Thank you very much for observing this video.